Last year at Consensus conference, we launched your ICO.
Yeah, we announced at Consensus last year, at actually the Token Summit.
Yes, that's right, that's right.
That's where we announced
right after,
our ICO.
on William's event.
Yes.
That's right.
So that was quite an interesting time. I think ICOs were just really kicking off more mainstream, if you can call them that.
There was as much tailwind as you can have.
Yeah, we definitely caught it at an interesting time. And I want to say, by the way, I take an opportunity to thank you guys, because I must say it was an absolute pleasure working with TokenMarket for reasons that, you know, from a professionalism and a trust point of view, I think it's hard to see. If you've worked with a lot of companies in this space, you'll see there's a lot of bankers, there's a lot of people that are in for a quick buck, and TokenMarket really believed in the product that they were building. You believed in this industry and in this ecosystem, and I think, you know, the trust. We could basically have worked together on a handshake, and it would have been perfectly smooth. It was quite incredible. And so thank you to you and Miko, who...
Absolutely, yeah. Miko was there on site.
That was amazing. I mean, it was one of the largest token sales. I think it was supposed to be the largest token sale at the time. And the day before, I think it was Status, went and did 150 million.
Yes,
just
exactly.
The day before, and screwed up the whole network for us as well.
That's true, yeah.
I remember that.
There was the Ethereum network was on a terrible shape then. So there was a 33 million ICO with a few special things there. So the one was that you had to have, so you already had a very special on ICO companies, you already had the functioning app. We
did. It was a blockchain-based app for identity, so largely it was fulfilling the dreams. I think what was very interesting is we actually had the vision, not so much of doing an ICO from the very beginning when we got VC funded. And it's quite interesting when we did the ICO and our investors came and said, oh, that was a great pivot. Then we pulled out the decks to show them actually it wasn't so much of a pivot, more of an advancement of what we'd already planned. So we'd already built an identity app that was really using the Bitcoin blockchain for identity verification. And we used that app within our ICO as well, because one of the things that we looked at is the few ICOs that had gone before us, especially the big ones, were heavily criticized for the way that they behaved. Yeah. In a lot of ways, I think, I don't want to call out names, but there was one quite close to us that basically ended up with 9 investors taking up the whole. Oh, yeah, and lots of bots just buying up everything on day one. Yeah,
your deal was very democratic.
Yeah, so we tried to take all the learnings we'd seen before, as well as a hell of a lot of legal counsel. Now, at the time, there was very little legal guidance. So a lot of time was spent on the legal process trying to understand how to make this legitimate within the frameworks that existed at the time. And that allowed us to, one, we did massively broad distribution of the token. Yeah. At the time, it was somewhere between 8,000 and 10,000.
The 60,000 people were on a queue on the height of the middle of the public ICO.
Yeah, so we realized the demand would be high, and we saw what had happened in previous ICOs, and so we built a very nice and secure queuing mechanism as well. Yeah, so there were 60,000 people in the end waiting in line.
Exactly. So we actually used the same queuing system that ticket companies use, like a Coldplay concerts and stuff like that. So that was specially plugged in for that.
Yeah, so that was actually very useful because we could control the speed of people coming in. We could communicate directly with everyone in the queue, which made it a very interactive experience. Quite scary at the end, though, because when we shut it down, when we hit our hard cap, there were actually people coming into our office. We had to abandon our office because people were so pissed off that they never got their allocation. They came storming into the office. It was actually quite strange and worrying. But yeah, so we did a very broad distribution. Nobody got a discount, and I think today I don't think that's ever happened.
Yeah, exactly. So pre-sales and the public sale were all on the same price, and then also on the pre-sale that was limited, so that we actually ended up refunding more than $10 million. So this ICO could have collected so much more, but you know you kept your head cool and just collected 33 million.
Yeah, we had our hard cap from the beginning, and we stuck to that. And for the pre-sale, we allocated up to the full amount for the pre-sale, with the clear expectation to early buyers that they would get refunded any amount over any amount that the crowd sale brought in effectively would be refunded to early investors.
And Exactly, and then that was done like in 3 weeks or so. Then the whole thing.
No, the whole thing. So the pre-sale, I can't remember how long the pre-sale.
No, it was actually 2 weeks. It was.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
The crowd sale could have been done in a day. We slowed it down and did it over 2 days.
So there was a very small allocation. So it was like $400, $800, that kind of slots that were given away to people.
Yeah, so we bucketed it. So there was a limited number of $25,000 allocations, etc. So right down to $50 allocations, and then so we could get a much broader distribution, because we really, the whole thing from the beginning was as a utility and was supposed to be broadly used and broadly held, and we made sure that happened in the ICO. We used our app to do that as well, so that bots could not, that was one of the things. We didn't want bots buying up everything, and using a mobile phone, using our blockchain identity solution, you couldn't do that. So we knew who was buying, we knew. We were very much in control of the whole process.
Exactly, and then 8 to 10,000 people invested. And then how many people now you think has tokens?
By our best guesstimates, based on information we have, it's around about 100,000 people individually own our token.
So now a good bunch of people is kind of vested on the whole idea of a decentralized.
And now, even within our ecosystem, for our services, companies need to use our token effectively to use our services. They're effectively running in the background, powering the KYC network.
Right. So then, tell exactly what Civic does.
So there's two main components, right? So one is the mobile solution. So you store your digital identity on your device. And we, as Civic, do not hold any of the data at all, and ultimately the attestations can be verified on chain. So that's just the digital identity solution, and the concept as well is the reusability of that digital identity. The second part of the solution is really a marketplace that we're building, and that's a lot of what the economy we've built is to power this marketplace. And so what that effectively has is what we call identity requesters and identity validators. So any company that wants to do KYC, whatever that may be, and KYC is, I think it's too broad it's too narrow a definition, and we need to more broadly define what we're trying to do, because, for example, at Consensus, we showed what we can do for alcohol distribution, right? So with a vending machine.
That's right, yeah.
And it seems gimmicky, but it's actually a very interesting thing that you can't practically sell alcohol out of a vending machine because you've got to prove the age. And to prove the age with current technology is very expensive. Scan a driver's license, go through the processes. But the concept of reusable KYC through a digital identity, through a blockchain, makes this very, very powerful. Anyone who's been to a sporting event will know what it's like to wait for a beer and maybe not even get your beer. So if you think about the concepts, there's actually very practical applications.
So the guys had a beer vending machine at Consensus in New York now with the integration of using app, you get the beer out.
Yes.
And proving your identity that you're over 21.
Exactly. And that, to us, that vending machine is a requester on our network. And that is just the ability to prove that you're over 21 in the US, because that's the legal drinking age, is one use that goes beyond just for a bank opening an account and doing all of that. That, we're taking KYC to a different level and enabling much more interesting use cases for consumers. And I think, the lowering the cost and the lowering the barriers to doing identity verification are also going to massively expand the use cases for identity that we don't even see today. And that's a very important part of what we're trying to achieve. On the other side are the identity validators, and these can be any companies, whether it's on FIDO or other companies that can participate in this ecosystem and monetize the reuse of identity. So anytime somebody goes and uses their identity that's been verified, those that have spent all that money doing the verifications should get paid. Banks spend a fortune, $30, $50, verifying someone.
Exactly. So give a real life example. So basically, how does it that reselling works?
So we've got a smart contract ecosystem, and effectively, to keep it short, you're welcome to go read our white papers, and we've released one recently on the game theory that we're going to implement to try and keep everyone honest within this ecosystem and self-governing. But basically, the requesters will be sending funds into escrow that only upon verification of receipt of data will those funds be released ultimately to the validator who has originally done the validation. I mean, little bit more complex than that, but that's, in a nutshell, that's what it is. So if your bank, for example, participates and you have a Civic identity through that, when you go and reuse that fact, let's say to get your beer, the bank will be charging a particular rate to validate your age, and then it'll get paid that for the privilege of using that data.
Yeah, exactly. So the bank first, they have a cost, let's say $5 to the full KYC for you. And then they can start selling that, and I can now buy as a token market that data from them with the consumer's approval for $1 or whatever is the market price.
Exactly.
Market price sets.
Exactly. Just to be clear, though, you're never buying it from the bank. The user is the only one who has the data, and they're always sharing it. And there is no relationship or privacy issues between the entities, which is very important to make sure that you don't break any of the data sharing privacy laws, and consumers always consenting to whatever data is being given.
Exactly. And now then, of course, last year you were probably the first ICO to do, because there was a blockchain capital security token offering that we're going to hear about tomorrow. But then, other than that, that was probably the only one that had a KYC like ever any ICOs, not that I remember. So
it wasn't really, I mean, it wasn't KYC as you would do today. The intent was more for broader distribution and making sure that we had a certain level of control.
It was more of a name configuration.
Yeah, so we weren't really doing what you would do today. And to be honest, opinions back then, they were completely different. I don't want to go into the legal advice we were given or anything like that, but the way people are
basically last summer, most of the times lawyers said that do not do KYC because that makes ICOs look like a security.
In a way, there was a view in those days that do everything that's opposite to what a security would be, and the way you would do a security. And I think since the SEC specifically came out and blasted lawyers for the advice that they were giving ICO companies, things have changed quite substantially, and it's become much more conservative, and not necessarily for bad reasons. And I think there's a lot of, I can hear on some of the panels, there's a lot of anger towards the SEC and the way that they operate in the US. I think on the flip side to that, there's been a lot of stamping out of fraud, and people are scared now to do bad things in the US specifically. So you kind of have to weigh that up as well.
Exactly. But now we're heading towards, of course, the great thing about ICOs, global investor base. Now we're gonna have to go tougher on which we have already done on at the token market. Everything is KYC and AML. So then, tell us a little bit how do you see that the Civic will then work on solving that kind of a global, first on app tokens, and then we go up a notch for security offerings.
So I think in the simplest state, which we're doing today, and we've got lots of companies using us for token sales and other purposes as well, it is that quick verification that you can reuse. So once you have your identity verified, you quickly log on to another ICO and you want to participate, you can simply do that. And with your integration with us, if companies are using our solution, then... Yeah,
so anyone who wants to test that it's on Token Market, you can log into Token Market website using Civic.
Yeah, so you'll scan your driver's license, you'll go through the processes and get verified, like you normally would, but then you can, of course, reuse that identity verification for any purpose, whether it's getting a beer or participating in an ICO. And then looking further down the line, we do want to see this coming to decentralized exchanges as well, whereby smart contracts will be able to check, are you an accredited investor? Are you, what level of verification do you have? Who verified you? All of these kinds of things being able to take place on chain as much as possible. And more broadly speaking, from a compliance point of view, a lot of companies also don't want to store data. Some of them have to, they claim for audit purposes or whatever it may be. But you're getting into a world, and we hope to see more of this, where you can just trust what you see and what you've been given based on the cryptographic proofs, based on the chain solution that's being used, and you can move away from actually have to storing data altogether. Lots of in the unregulated space, we see a lot of demand for that. People do not actually want to hold social security numbers in the US, and because these records are just done so that they can do their own KYC. Not having to do that puts them at less risk as well. So there's I hope we get to that point where you hold the data you want rather than unnecessary.
You see that could move over to regulated market?
I think in time, once there's trust.
But it's not holding about the data, because we see all the data breaches in America that has happened, the massive ones, like hundreds of million people data breaches. So you think that this would be the solution then to avoid those?
First, you have to get to the trust, because at the end of the day, even though technically you can outsource your KYC solution as a bank, at the end of the day, the regulations are quite clear. You can do that, but you're still responsible if something goes wrong. So from a compliance point of view, the compliance officer is never going to say, okay, we're just going to throw everything we do out the window. And we're going to be the... Yeah, I mean, that's... And one very large bank, it always sticks with me. What they said to me, they said, we don't care if the solution we're using is terrible today. The bottom line is it's the same as everyone else does it. So when we get up in court, we can say that we're doing it just like everyone else and we're not going to get in trouble. And that is, in a nutshell, I think the way a lot of that industry thinks. And for good reason, people go to jail now if you know, at the C-suite, if they're not compliant.
Of course, yeah, exactly. And then on accredited investor thing, have you any plans on that one?
So we're working with a partner on the accredited investor piece. It was mentioned as well. It's a very manual process, and I really don't see that becoming automated in the near future, because there's a lot of pieces. You know, if you're just a salary earner and you've got your, in the US called the W-2 that proves your salary, you can automatically hook into those solutions, but that is not how most wealthier people make their money, only through their salary. And to prove your asset worth and all this, it's not an automatable solution easily, but once it's done, I think within the US it lasts for 3 months, and that certification can then be reused, and we can hold that, the user holds that certification on their device, and it's an on-chain entry just like any other identity attribute.
Got it. And then how has the company grown? Like, you know, you said 100,000 people now hold a token. There's a bunch of websites now that have, just like us, integrated the login. And then overall, how big is the company now with the employees and stuff?
So we've got just on, I think, 40 plus people. So that's quite a significant growth, and we've got lots of plans coming out. We've got other products, something like ID codes, for example, which is hopefully going to be very useful for the ICO business, because I think everybody knows.
So what are those?
So I'm sure everybody's seen the fake ICO pages that claim to have all these great advisors and team members and all of that. So we've got a product that we've launched now.
The Tim Draper was a sample on that or something. Vinny was, of course.
Yeah, there's lots of people. There's so many of these. You can go and search and you'll find lots of ICOs with fake advisors. So what we've launched is a product that now allows companies to register their relationship with individuals. So if I want to be an advisor on an ICO, they'll invite me and I'll confirm that I'm an advisor. I'll do a full KYC process as well, so that the people, when they check that on the ICO page, they'll be able to see, and we don't have a page up that I can show you, but a little Civic logo that you can check with your phone and make sure that this person is authentic.
And where is that now on a production timeline?
We are launching it. It's in privately. Some companies will have access to it in the next week or two.
Cool.
It's live on our site, actually. If you go to our token sale site, you can see how it works. And in about a month,
so we should announce it here that we integrate as well, huh?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, we're done. We're integrating.
Yeah, it's done. It's announced.
There we go.
There we go.
So and I think that shows more of a consumer-based use case, because we're going to be doing a lot of consumer-based things in the future that are going to add a lot of value to give ICOs credibility, and then broader market adoption for other use cases are coming.
Yeah, fantastic. So I see the sign there. So the last question comes then, or two last questions, quick ones. How many times have Honda tried to buy your website? The domain.
Honda. It's actually quite amazing how many. When we first did our SEO, whenever you search for Civic, that was the #1 hit that you used to get.
Yeah, I just tried it now. That's why I'm asking.
But they haven't actually. That's the funny thing. They never reached out to us.
Those Japanese. And then always your co-founder, Vinny Lingham, always does the BTC predictions of the price. So now you have to do once, like, you know, because he always puts his price on every conference. He says,
"You want a BTC prediction?"
Yeah, for the end of the year.
BTC for the end of the year. You can't be wrong with these predictions yet. So I will actually probably say it'll be around about where it is today. I'm not bullish on BTC.
So this is going to be a flat year.
I think it's going to be this year, but if I had to take a prediction, I still think it's potentially overpriced.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Sorry.